September 20th, 480 BC. 180 Greek warships faced the entire might of the Persian Empire. The odds? 7-1. The stakes? Western civilization itself. This is the story of Salamis, the naval battle that rewrote human history. A battle where brilliant deception defeated overwhelming force, where democracy faced its first existential test, and where one man's genius strategy saved the world as we know it. To understand what was at stake, we must travel back further. The Persian Empire under Xerxes the Great was the world's first superpower, spanning from India to Egypt, from the Black Sea to the Arabian Peninsula. 28 nations, 50 million people, 1/3 of Earth's entire population. This was the largest empire the world had ever seen. And in 480 BC, Xerxes turned his gaze westward, toward a collection of fractured Greek city-states that dared to call themselves free. 10 years earlier, the Persians had tried to conquer Greece at Marathon. Athenian warriors had miraculously repelled them. But Xerxes would not accept humiliation. He spent a decade assembling the largest invasion force in ancient history. Historical accounts claim over 1 million soldiers. Modern historians estimate between 200,000 and 300,000 troops, still staggering by ancient standards. The Persian fleet alone consisted of 1,207 warships. Greece was not a unified nation. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, they were rival city-states, often at war with each other. But facing annihilation, they formed an alliance. The odds were brutal. At Thermopylae, King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans made their legendary stand, buying time with their lives. But the Persians broke through. They marched south, and they burned Athens to the ground. The Greek army was shattered. Their greatest city was ash. Refugees crowded the island of Salamis, watching their homes burn across the water. Most Greek commanders wanted to retreat further south, abandon central Greece entirely. But one man saw something no one else could see, an Athenian admiral named Themistocles. And he was about to gamble everything on a strategy so audacious, so risky, that if it failed, Western democracy would die before it truly began. Themistocles had been preparing for this moment for a decade. After Marathon, while others celebrated, he understood the truth: the Persians would return. And he convinced Athens to do something unprecedented. In 483 BC, when silver was discovered in Athenian mines, the citizens voted to forego personal wealth. Instead, they built a fleet, 200 triremes, the most advanced warships of their time. Themistocles knew the next war would be won or lost at sea. Now, with the Persian fleet anchored in nearby waters, 600 ships strong after storm losses, Themistocles faced unified opposition from allied commanders. They wanted to retreat to the Peloponnese, defend only Sparta's home territory. But Themistocles saw what they couldn't. The narrow straits of Salamis would neutralize Persia's numerical advantage. In tight waters, their massive fleet would become a liability, ships colliding, unable to maneuver. Greek triremes, smaller and faster, would have the edge. The Greeks had 370 ships, still outnumbered. And worse, the Persian king had learned from Thermopylae. He wouldn't rush in. He could simply wait, blockade Salamis, starve them out, march his army south and conquer the Peloponnese by land. Themistocles needed Xerxes to attack, to commit his entire fleet to the straits, to make a mistake. So the Athenian admiral did something that would have gotten him executed if it failed. He sent a secret message to the enemy king. The message claimed that Themistocles was secretly sympathetic to Persia, that the Greek alliance was fracturing, that they would attempt to escape by night, and that if Xerxes struck now, he could trap and destroy them. Every word was a lie, but Xerxes believed it. Why wouldn't he? His forces had crushed everything in their path. Greek unity had always been fragile. The intelligence confirmed what he already assumed, that victory was inevitable. That night, Xerxes ordered his fleet to move. Egyptian squadrons blocked the western exit. The main fleet prepared to enter the straits at dawn. The Persian king even had a throne erected on the mountainside overlooking the water, so he could watch the final annihilation of Greek resistance. He had no idea he was walking into a trap. But here's what historians still debate. Did Themistocles have a backup plan? Some accounts suggest he sent a second, contradictory message later that night, just in case, telling the Persians the opposite, ensuring that whatever happened, He could claim he'd been trying to help them. Was he a genius? A trader hedging his bets? Or both? September 20th, 480 BC. The sun rises over the Straits of Salamis. The Persian fleet enters the channel, confident, overwhelming, unstoppable. And then the Greeks attack. Greek triremes were built for one purpose, the Diak Plus, a ramming maneuver where bronze-reinforced prows smashed into enemy hulls. In open water, Persian ships could surround and overwhelm them. But here, packed in the straits, the Persians couldn't maneuver. Ship crashed into ship. Persian vessels, larger and heavier, collided with each other trying to turn in the tight channel. Greek crews, lighter and faster, struck and retreated. The water churned red. Ancient historian Aeschylus, who fought in the battle, described bodies like tuna fish floating in masses. The screams of dying men echoed off the mountainsides. For 8 hours, the slaughter continued. The Persian queen Artemisia, one of Xerxes' few female commanders, fought brilliantly, even sinking one of her own allied ships to escape. But individual heroics couldn't overcome strategic disaster. The Persians were trapped in a killing field of their own making. From his throne on the mountain, Xerxes watched his unstoppable armada destroyed. 200 Persian ships sunk. Thousands dead. The Greeks lost only 40 vessels. When the sun set on September 20th, the balance of power in the ancient world had shifted. Xerxes still had his army. He still controlled most of Greece. But his fleet, his ability to supply and support that army, was shattered. Without naval superiority, he couldn't protect his supply lines across the Aegean, couldn't coordinate his forces. The invasion that had seemed unstoppable now faced impossible logistics. Within days, Xerxes fled back to Persia with a portion of his army, leaving his general Mardonius with the rest. The following year, at Plataea, the remaining Persian forces would be destroyed by Greek infantry. The invasion was over. The Persian Empire would never threaten Greece again. But here's what's truly staggering. If Salamis had gone the other way, if Xerxes had won, there would be no Western philosophy as we know it. No Socrates, Plato, or Aristotle. No scientific revolution rooted in Greek inquiry. No Renaissance inspired by classical ideals. No democracy as a governing model. The Battle of Salamis wasn't just about territory or power. It was a clash of civilizations between two fundamentally different ways of organizing human society. Persia was an empire, centralized authority, divine kingship. Xerxes was seen as a god on earth. His word was absolute law across millions of subjects. This model had dominated human civilization for millennia. It was the default state of complex societies. Greece, specifically Athens, represented something radically new. Democracy, individual rights, government by citizen assembly. The idea that ordinary people could govern themselves, that truth came from debate and reason rather than divine decree. These ideas were fragile, untested. If Persian autocracy had crushed Greek democracy at Salamis, the experiment might have died there. The world might have remained locked in cycles of empire and divine kingship for centuries more. Some historians wonder, was it really that close? Could one battle truly determine the course of civilization? Others argue yes, that great historical changes often pivot on single moments. That Themistocles' deception, executed perfectly on one September morning, genuinely altered humanity's trajectory. We remember Salamis as a strategic triumph, a victory of intelligence over force. But we shouldn't forget what it cost. Thousands of men, Greek and Persian, drowned in those straits. Most couldn't swim. Trapped below decks when their ships were rammed, they died in darkness and terror. Families on both sides lost fathers, sons, brothers. War's horror doesn't distinguish between winner and loser. Themistocles himself ended his life in exile. His own people eventually turned against him for political intrigue. He died in the Persian Empire, ironically, given honors by the very kingdom he defeated. Genius and tragedy intertwined. But his legacy endured. Salamis proved that free people, fighting for their homes, could defeat empires. That intelligence and strategy could overcome brute force. That democracy was worth defending, that it could survive. The world that emerged from Salamis gave us science, philosophy, theater, history as a discipline. It gave us the idea that citizens could question authority, that reason could triumph over superstition, that freedom was worth any price. When the American founding fathers designed their democracy, they looked to Athens. When the French Revolution proclaimed the rights of man, they invoked Greek ideals. When the United Nations was founded, democratic principles rooted in ancient Greece became its foundation. Salamis didn't guarantee this outcome. Greek democracy would eventually fall. Empires would rise again. But the idea, the proof that free people could govern themselves, never completely died. It survived, generation after generation, because on one September morning in 480 BC, it survived its first great test. Today, the Straits of Salamis are quiet. Ferries pass where triremes once clashed. The water has long since washed away the blood. But every democracy on Earth, including the one you live in, owes something to what happened here. One battle. One man's brilliant strategy. One moment when the future of human freedom hung in the balance. And the world changed forever.